This is Volusia Today, a public information radio program brought to you by the County of Volusia. Here is Community Information's Brian Vandal and Kevin Captain.
Good morning and welcome to Volusia Today. I'm Kevin Captain and I'm joined by my co-host, Brian Vandal. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Volusia Today is made possible by our sponsors, the Daytona Beach International Airport, the Ocean Center, Volusia Recycles, and Votran Public Transportation. Hey, Brian, what's happening?
Not a whole lot.
So I think with all these April showers, we've got the perfect two guests today.
Yes, we are going green today. And as the prophet Kermit says, sometimes it's hard being green. But don't worry, we have two people that will help us recognize our carbon footprint and help us reduce that carbon footprint. We have Katrina Locke. She is the Sustainability and Resilience Manager. And Tom Carey, he is the Water Quality Manager, both for Volusia County.
And two great guests. So first of all, Katrina got the memo. She's wearing green.
Yep, she's
but
wearing
Tom
green.
Didn't get the memo.
And then we were talking about septic tanks.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So good morning, Tom. Good morning, Katrina. So Tom, let's start out. First, the county conducted a growth management and permitting workshop recently. And one of the prominent things that was discussed in the workshop is water quality and water conservation, particularly how it's affected by growth and development. And so it was a great workshop. And, you know, certainly growth management is not one of those topics where none of us here can hit the easy button. Right. So, but what can you tell us about what the county is doing in terms of, you know, smart growth, water conservation, and to improve the quality of our water here in Volusia County?
Well, I think we're really doing a lot, Kevin. A lot of people don't realize it, but since 1988, we've had a water sampling team to go out and sample nearly all of our water bodies in Volusia County. We're talking about 120 sites on our rivers, lakes, springs, and that, you know, getting that data over time is very important to us because we can see where we've been, where we are, and kind of where we may be going. And so I think we have a pretty comprehensive monitoring plan, and that helps us a lot in making decisions about growth and things of that nature and where we might want to, target our education. So I think we've got a real good plan on that. You know, as far as water conservation, since about that time, since about the early 90s, we've had a water conservation ordinance. Mm-hmm. And, you're only allowed to water so many days per week and so many hours per day. And you have to have a rain sensor if you have an automatic timer. So that's really important. Another thing is a few years ago, we implemented a WaterWise ordinance, which is it actually controls the installation of irrigation systems to make them more efficient. So, little by little, we try to, make everything more conservative, more, friendly towards the environment as far as pollution control and things of that nature. So a lot of irons in the fire. We're up against, a lot of things. We have a legacy load of pollutants that have, been occurring over time. Plus we have more people coming in all the time and we're continuing to grow. So, we're kind of like that gerbil on the treadmill sometimes it feels, trying to catch up with everything that's happening. But, personal responsibility, everybody needs to do their part. We like to say that everybody's part of the problem, but everybody's part of the solution.
Absolutely. And you're talking about irrigation and I know we've talked in the past before about, you mentioned the rain sensor and those irrigation contractors that go in and then they replace irrigation or they upgraded mine recently. And but the gentleman told me, he said, these rain sensors, they may not last the life of your system. Right. So be mindful of going in there and making sure it works and replace it if it needs to be replaced.
Exactly. And, contractors that don't put them in or say they don't last very long, well, your oil in your car doesn't last very long either, but you change it every once in a while, right? So that's irrigation systems.
It's a mechanical part.
That's exactly
right. Anything mechanical, it's going to go wrong.
It's going to wear out, right? And you replace it. So a rain sensor is the same thing. So it's just all part of it.
So what is our general health of our water bodies right now?
Depends where you look.
Okay, well, let's look in the good places.
Okay, right. In our springs, we have challenges. We have 3 outstanding Florida springs, Gemini, DeLeon Springs, and Blue Spring, and all 3 are impaired for water quality. Typically, nitrogen, too much nitrogen there, and the nitrogen comes from either fertilizers, septic tanks, pet waste, So there's a few sources of them. So we have a basin management action plan on all 3 of those springs, where we're trying to improve the water quality in those springs. Our rivers, the St. Johns River is actually pretty decent, water quality to it. Halifax is a little bit impaired. And the Indian River, we have a plan, actually, a remedial action plan on that, and it's actually fairly pristine, but we're trying to keep it that way. So, there's a lot of dynamics in this county. We have a lot of wonderful water bodies, and the aquifer as well. But every one of them is unique, and we have to handle each one of them differently. So,
and Katrina, let's talk a little bit about sustainability.
Yeah.
How would you define sustainability? And what is the county doing environmentally to address sustainability?
Right. So there's different definitions of sustainability in the sense of like the way you actually say it, right? So one of them is to say something like, we're meeting the needs of today without compromising the needs of future generations. So in other words, really going back to some of the things that Tom talked about, we're using our resources wisely. We're conserving our resources. We're maybe not using resources that we don't need to use. So just really thinking about those natural resources. And like I said, being very, very mindful of our use. But from the county's perspective, we actually have a sustainability action plan that we have goals and objectives in that plan that we follow, and we're about to look at updating that over this next year and bringing it up to date based on the things that we've done and some of the things that we can do as we move forwards. And then from promoting it, we have lots of great programs in the county. We have lots of great facilities, not just county-run facilities, but others. But from the county's perspective, we have Lionia Environmental Centre, we have the Marine Science Centre, we've got DeBerry Hall, and Green Volusia. We've got a lot of programs going on now through Green Volusia as well, though we talk about how to do those 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle, but then refuse and repurpose, because those are the other things that we like to talk about, like
the 5 R's.
Yeah, and like next time you go to the store, do you need that plastic bag? Or, is there something else I can use? Or before I throw this out, can somebody else in my family use it? Or can I send it to a store to be resold? Or, what is there something else I can use it for? Or do I need to buy that because maybe I've got something at home that I could use instead, or repurpose, So there's lots of great things you can do.
And all those little R's add up to probably the big R is resiliency.
Right.
And that's probably a delicate balance between, environmental concerns, the that you want economic growth to your county, plus you have to think of the social aspects.
Right. So when you're looking at the sustainability piece, there's a very, tie between sustainability and resilience in that, the emissions that we generate from the things that we do, obviously are changing the climate. So if we start to think about what we can do to reduce those impacts, then we have a positive effect on the emissions. So we're reducing those emissions. So it's a positive effect on the climate. So, it's a long term, and it's, but every small thing that we do makes a difference, right? So we might think it's only a small thing that I'm doing, but if everybody around you in your neighborhood and your community was doing that one small thing, then it all adds up.
If we all share those same, core values of sustainability and like Brian said, resiliency. You mentioned the sustainability action plan and how important that is, and all of the many programs that the county does. You also work very closely with growth and resource management. And again, since we're talking about growth and we have a tremendous amount of growth in Volusia County, your team also focuses greatly on green building. What are those resources like? And that's really, again, we have to change our mindset of the way we think about building.
Right. So there's some amazing resources out there. There's some that are free resources available to folks. Florida Green Building Coalition has a list of different things that you can do to green your home, that your existing home, but also from if you're starting to build a home, you can look on their site and they have a list of practices that you can utilize to get certified as a green home. So within there, they're looking at water, and they're looking at energy, and kind of like the conversation we were having earlier on before the show, there's this idea that if you're utilizing water, then you're probably somewhere along the line there's energy being used, and vice versa. So the two together, if you start reducing your use of both of those, you're really thinking about saving money, which is a big piece. You mentioned economics. That's a big piece for all of us, right? And then also in the construction practices, so the things that we do when we construct those homes, we're looking at the maintenance, so reducing maintenance maintenance from green building, and then also being more resilient. So the materials that you use and the way those homes are constructed are more resilient to some of the issues that we may have as we move forward. So whether it's events from flooding or storm impacts. So there's great things. And then inside, we were talking about landscaping. So they look at inside and outside your home use. So in the landscaping itself, looking at ways we can use Florida-friendly landscaping practices, incorporate Florida native plants. So we're using less water and pesticides and fertilizer are not as impactful because they're not required longer term. And then looking at things like low impact development. So before you even design and start building the site, looking at the practices that you're doing to keep stormwater on that site. So that low impact, development, so that stormwater is not run off and creating an issue for somebody else. So dealing with it on site. So it might be just from something like a single building to a whole development, but looking at that in the design process and when you start looking at your site development.
What are your thoughts on rain barrels? I mean, is that considered green building or even?
So yeah, it's part of green infrastructure. When we're looking at rain barrels, and yes, and it's certainly something that is within green building practices too. It's using water on site, harvesting that water, so you're not turning on the irrigation system. So there's definitely benefits to that, and also from individual lots, there's something else you can do, like a rain garden by planting natives on site. Look at an area where there's water collecting, where you can collect water. So there's other things that you can do too.
So you mentioned Florida native plants. How much water do we use to keep our grass green? I mean, you see irrigation throughout all communities.
Right.
How much water is going towards just making sure our grass is a pretty color green?
Well, over 50% of the water that's used in Volusia County is put out on lawns, which is...
That's just amazing to think that it's that much water to keep our grasses green.
Yeah, and it's kind of the mindset of, the residents that we have come and live here. Most of them come, you talked about the Midwest earlier, they come from places where the grass naturally grows well, and you have soils that are loamy type of soils, high in water retention and high in nutrient retention. Here we have sandy soils. It's still a soil, but it's very porous, and so it doesn't hold on to nutrients and it doesn't hold on to water very well. So what do? You got to irrigate it if you want it to look like up north. If we can kind of change the mindset of people that my lawn in Florida doesn't need to look at my lawn in Illinois or Indiana or New York or Michigan, we'd be doing a whole lot better. And I think we're making a little bit of progress there, but certainly not enough.
And Kevin came up with this statistic. He said that Americans use 5 times as much water as a European. Now, is that because when I think of it, European, they're more densely populated. They're living vertically as opposed to we have our big lawns and stuff like that.
When I heard that, I couldn't believe it. 5 times.
Right. I think it's a cultural thing, and I think it's got a lot to do with urbanization. But cultural thing. I mean, people like their lawns. People like their play areas and stuff like that. Which there's nothing wrong with it, but we can certainly do it a better way.
But certainly, reading about a statistic like that, it teaches us a lot about ourselves, about our utilization, and again, going back to that mindset change. And sustainability. This cannot sustain itself in the future.
Right. And behavioral changes, just like like you were saying, it's how do we change our behavior? And it's really kind of like we're saying, stepping back and looking at what you're doing on a daily basis, and are there ways you can save water? What can you do in your daily activities to save water?
We're talking with Katrina Locke. She's the Sustainability and Resiliency Manager with Volusia County, and Tom Carey, who's the Pollution Control Manager, and many other hats, Tom. Sometimes I think it depends on the day what title you have.
Right.
But we'll continue talking about water and water conservation. Stay with us.
Get ready. It's time for another Volusia County Fire Rescue Fire Safety Tip.
Another good tip for the kitchen is safety for the children. We want to create a 3-foot zone of safety around the stovetop so that children can't access and get burned.
I'm Will Roberts, your Volusia County tax collector. Nobody enjoys standing in line. That's why the next time you have business at the tax collector's office, skip the line by paying online. Here's how you do it. If you need to renew a vehicle registration or pay property taxes, all you need is a computer or a smartphone. To pay online, you may use a debit or credit card or your checking account. To get to the secured site, log on to vctaxcollector.org/pay. That's vctaxcollector.org/pay. Choose either vehicle registration or property tax. Then type in the information that's needed to complete the transaction. Before you log on, you do need to know that the website's third-party vendor charges a service fee. The tax collector does not receive any portion of this fee. So skip the line and pay online. For more information about services the tax collector provides, please log on to vctaxcollector.org. That's vctaxcollector.org.
And we're back. I'm Brian Van, along with Kevin Captain. You're listening to Volusia Today, a public information radio program brought to you by the County of Volusia. Thanks for listening this morning.
Thanks, Brian. So we're talking with Katrina Locke and Tom Carey with the Volusia County's Environmental Management Division. So we're talking a lot about growth management today and how it affects water. And along the lines of water conservation and sustainability, there's programs and resources that are out there and available for individuals, for families, for commercial entities. Some of the ones that I've seen on Volusia.org mention Florida Water Star, the EPA's Water Sense program. Can you guys talk about some of those programs and how they benefit with what we're talking about with water quality preservation and conservation?
Yeah, so they're both programs that are designed to obviously save water, just as you said, so to be more conserving on the resources that we use. From a water sense perspective, these are a number of different products that are labeled with water sense, so the EPA's water sense. So when you're buying a product at the store, you're changing out your shower or your faucet, you can look for a labeling on the box that talks about water sense and will identify as a product that is more conserving when it comes to using water.
All the more reason to look at labels.
Right.
Yes.
And a lot of these things are required by Florida statute, the building code statute now. And a big driver of the Water Star is the Water Management District. They have a program where, they give actually points for installing, low drip or low flow faucets and certain shut off valves and things of that nature. So it's a pretty comprehensive program.
And once you take ownership of that house that's followed all those rules, there's no inspector coming to make sure that you follow the rules necessarily. It really comes down to personal responsibility. And you guys have a lot of educational opportunities or outlets that you can, you go to your website, it's like from kids to adults, there's something for everyone to glom onto and to learn quite a bit about.
Yeah, there's lots of information on the website, on the Green Volusia website, on things that you can do to reduce your impact. And that's basically what we're looking at, is how can I do something, like you said, personal responsibility, how can I do something different? But it's also, we also talk about what we're doing as well, right? So we don't want to just stand there and say what you should do. We're sharing with you what we, the county, have been doing in some of these program areas too.
Interesting stuff. So we talked also about sea level rise coming up, and that's also a part of resiliency and how that affects water as well too. What's the county doing for that? Because we know that it's coming our way and it affects the groundwater.
So from a resiliency perspective, we've been working on that since 2016, looking at plans, looking at sea level rise projections. We actually just completed a plan in 2017 with updated projection, 2019, I apologize, that had sea level rise projections in it that were taken to county council. And those are for planning purposes. So there's 3 projections, and depending on what you're building and how long it has a lifespan for, depends on which of those 3 curves you should really look at. We've gone out in 3 time frames as well, 2040, 2070, and 2100. So we're looking at what's happening in the county based on these projections over time. And then from that plan, which gives us also goals and objectives that we need to follow and to make us more resilient,
Sure.
Came the Regional Resilience Collaborative, which is an 8-county regional collaborative. Up to 78 cities could be within that collaborative too, of ways we can pull resources and really work together to address some of the issues. So like you said, sea level rise, but also, to the other impacts of climate change too, like heat stress and flooding.
And all that goes back into, again, the sustainability parts. I know when we're talking about those 5 R's, there's other areas that your team focuses on, for us being green. We always hear of being green, but there's other things like energy and travel, water, waste, health. I mean, all those things are things that are all compiled into your program for resiliency and sustainability.
Yeah, we do a lot of educational outreach on like we've talked about, ways that we can make an impact. So we just finished a Climate Smart Floridians class, which actually covered all the things that you just mentioned. We're advertising for another one that's going to happen in September. So again, that information will be on the Green Volusia site. But basically covering, what emissions come from those things that we do, from everyday transportation, and then giving people ideas of things that they can do, like carpool and ride sharing, really thinking about the trips you make and, do I really need to go out to the store for that one item, or can it wait till tomorrow when I'm doing that trip? And I'll just do a little detour around to get there. But it's a lot of saving of gas, a lot of saving of the emissions, but also, cost right now, right? So
Sure.
a big
high.
thing right now to save money. And so really something to think about. So we do education around the transportation piece, the food, and food waste, because again, linking it back to water and energy, in the production, in the growing, and the production of specific food items, and then the waste piece of it, right? There's all of that going on. There's all energy and water being wasted in those processes if we're throwing food out. So then we talk about composting as well, and a way to deal with that if you do have some waste, or even if you're cutting up vegetables, you're going to have something, right? So great way to put it in the compost bin, recycle it, get it to make some really good compost, and then grow some vegetables in your yard. So we talk about things like that too. But then, there is so many programs, like I said earlier, going on at a lot of our centers, and then also through the Green Volusia program on loads of different areas.
And one event that's coming up, Tom, is the St. John's River Cleanup.
Yeah.
What is this, 26th?
23rd.
23rd?
Day after Earth Day.
26th annual on the 23rd.
There you go.
There we go.
Yes, right. Yeah, so we'll be doing that from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. that day. And if folks want to participate, they can go to volusia.org/cleanup, and they can register for one of our 9 sites. We've got 156 miles of river to clean up, so we kind of divide it up along 9 sites, and hopefully we'll have a good turnout.
And you kind of look for, you like people on the shoreline, but you also like boaters, kayakers to kind of do the waterways.
The St. John is not very urbanized, so yeah, it's easier thankfully, you're right. So we do like kayakers, canoers, boaters to come out, but we take walkers too. Sure. So yeah, anybody's welcome. We have scout groups, church groups, individuals, just come out and clean up the river, and we usually find some very interesting items, and it's always a good time. So,
well, you mentioned Earth Day too. That's April 22nd.
Right.
And speaking of, going green, the Volusia County Council recently approved Earth Day as a free bus ride day for any county resident, anybody in Volusia County. You can hop on Votran, and it's going to be free on April the 22nd, Earth Day.
That's
so I think I might be coming to work on the bus that day.
All right.
So we're talking again with Katrina Locke and Tom Carey. We'll take our last break and come back and wrap up Volusia Today. Stay with us.
Do you enjoy helping animals in need? Then why not join our caring and professional team right here at Volusia County Animal Services? We have immediate openings for several high-energy candidates interested in becoming a part of our animal care clinic family. As a vet assistant, you'll be doing everything from prepping patients for surgery, as well as assisting in surgery, even recovering those patients. Also prepping log records and helping with our field services and our casework. Vet assistants also help out during our special events, which are extremely popular to the public. Things like pet microchipping and vaccine events, as well as food drives. All of those things are incredibly rewarding, and you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that you're helping pets right here in your community. To get more information, please visit volusia.org or call 386-248-1790. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, why don't we go to the Marine Science Center?
Yeah! Are you looking for a new adventure? Come on down to the Marine Science Center in Ponce Inlet. Watch as our staff cares for sick and injured sea turtles. You can also explore our marine exhibits, touch some stingrays, visit our gift shop, and stroll through the Seabird Sanctuary. Afterward, you can visit the Ponce Inlet Lighthouse. The Marine Science Center is open every day but Monday.
And welcome back to Volusia Today. We are talking today with Katrina Locke and Tom Carey, both with environmental management with Volusia County. We quickly, Tom, people are moving into the cities, but people are still living in unincorporated areas. A lot of people are on septic tanks still.
Sure. Yeah. Well, septic tanks have been around for a long time. And the intent of a septic tank is to destroy pathogens, and it's actually a health issue. They were never designed to remove nutrients. So we've got over 90,000 septic tanks in Volusia County.
90,000.
90,000. We're like the capital of septic tanks in Florida, which is not a really great badge to be wearing, but we're working on it. So they produce nitrogen pollution, which pollutes our groundwater, and more importantly, our springs, which are being affected now. But, we're trying to do some things about that. We are about to receive a $1.1 million grant from the Department of Environmental Protection to improve upgrades to septic tanks in the DeLeon Springs primary focus area. So that's $7,000 per upgrade. And, if you do it right, you can pretty much pay for the upgrade. And what the upgrades do is they reduce the amount of nitrogen that, goes into the groundwater and eventually into the spring. So that's a good thing.
So it's definitely a more advanced type of septic system that really helps to denature that nitrogen.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it nitrifies it, which makes it go up. 78% of our air that we're breathing right now is nitrogen. So it's a form of nitrogen that's in the ground, but it's got to be denitrified, and the bugs got to work on it and all that. So these systems make it so, and there's 3 different types of systems you can get. So there's some, variability there as well. So
it's great to see and hear that, your division's going out there to get grants and be able to improve our water quality. Well, with that, we'll wrap up Volusia Today. Thank you for listening. Take care, stay safe, and help your neighbors.
If you have a comment about Volusia Today, or if there is a topic you would like to hear featured, please contact Volusia County Community Information at 1-866-345-0345.